Well, it's turtle season in South Florida, and we've got quite a few turtle nests out on the beach. And I decided to do a cute little baby one. And this is probably, he's not very big, he's probably only a couple months old. But I'm going to wet his body in this area and here. If you see it from the photograph, he has a lot of green and gray on him. Well, we're going to liven him up just a little bit. We're going to add a few more brighter colors to him. So I'm just wetting his face. I'm going to come in with some of the magnesium blue and just give him a little bit of that blue and maybe add a little bit of the Hooker's green to it. Just so he's got a little bit of bright color on him. So change brushes and get a brush that's got a little bit better point on it. And I'm going to come in and add a little bit of the ultramarine blue. And I'm always touching it, especially when I'm working wet into it. I'm always touching the brush to the paper towel. Now let's pick this up and let it bleed and run a little bit, because he's going to have a shadow down there. So, and that's going to dry about 30% lighter. Let's add a little yellow up here on the top of him, just to brighten him up a little bit. And then on his back, that's pretty light too, and it's pretty green. So I'm going to come in with the Hookers. And if you notice, I didn't wet that. So I'm going to add, I'm pretty much wet into making it wet. Let's see, just go ahead and just do that little flipper back there. And come in. Now it's going to be a little bit darker under his belly, but I'm also going to come in and do a little bit of the magnesium blue right here. Let that bleed and run up the top there. So, trying to keep my hand out of the way so you can see what we're doing. Let's put a little bit of violet underneath his belly. Now that's a yellow green, so that's going to, if you brush it too much, it's going to cause it to get muddy. And I'm going to come in with the magnesium blue and maybe add a little more up here at the neck area and maybe back in here. I just want him to be colorful. Now let's come in with the magnesium here and maybe add a little bit of the ultramarine to go along with that. A little bit of yellow, lighter on the front end, as you can notice from the photograph. It was a lot lighter here. Now he's going to dry about 30% lighter, so we'll have to come back and do a few more little darker values and give him some texture. Now the wolf fin over here, that one's pretty dark, so let's do a little more blue on this back side and then a little green on the front end of that. Now, I'm going to splatter a little bit before. Maybe we'll soften that edge. I like those lost and found edges, so it creates some movement. Okay. Let's do a little bit of the violet. Maybe a little bit of magnesium blue. I want some of that color to go on him too. Let's soften some of this edges here. It's going to give him a lot of nice texture. can take a paper towel and blot a few of those because you don't want it to overpower. That ultramarine blue is a little dark. So let's let him dry. Now he dried quite a bit lighter. So if you look at the reference photo, there's quite a bit of the green that's in this area right here. So it would make it a little darker right under his shell. Change brushes, because I don't want that to be too hard of an edge there. And then I'm going to put a little bit darker close to, take some of it out, right in this area right here. This would be a little bit darker, just because his neck's going in to his house, so that would give him some roundness here. And then we've got a little bit darker value under here, which is where his flipper, I guess that's what you call him. Let's add a little green to that. Then I'm going to take a little bit of the ultramarine blue and make that a little darker under there. So I'll make him look a little more round. Now, the back side of his flipper is a little bit cooler, so I'm going to put some yellow in there, and that'll make it a little bit cooler. Then we're going to come in and make this a little darker in this area here, and then that's going to make that turn, because their flippers are a little bit round. So if you look at I'm just taking a damp brush and softening that edge. Let's add a little purple in there. And just let those colors bleed and blend together. And maybe a little bit of the ultramarine blue here. And maybe a little more of the green. So I'm just dropping in random color. I'm going to leave it alone. Now, let's look up here on the top. Now, on the back side, which would be this area over here, that would be turning. So that would make it a little darker as it turns. Now let's get some darker value here underneath his back, which is ultramarine blue. Now everything dries about 30% lighter. So, and then we're going to make that flipper darker. So I think I'm going to take that and make that darker with a little bit of ultramarine. You may hear a little bit of the rain. It's summertime in Florida, so it's starting to rain in the afternoon. So, there we go. And maybe a little more of that blue. There. Let's taper that off a little bit. I'm not real good about keeping my hand out of the way. I noticed that. So let's make this top a little stronger up here. Now let's work on his face. Okay, now I'm looking at his face, and if you look at his face also, you'll see this is, see, I'm talking face and doing something someplace else. So, now, if you look at, there's several little odd tile-looking shapes on his face. And we're going to just do a few to make it look at one of my smaller brushes. There's my little. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that violet too and go in and do. Need a brush with a better point. Let's do the rigger brush. So just make it random shapes. Maybe a little bit of violet right here. Now, I'm going to make his eye pretty dark, so I'm going to go in with the indigo and paint that eye dark. Always makes a difference when you get his eye in there. Now he has a shadow underneath his, it's almost like a beak, but it comes in there and gives him, I'm going to add a little bit darker underneath his chin, so that'll give him a little more roundness. So I'm taking the water out of the brush and just softening the edge a little bit. Now, if you notice and look at the photograph, you can see there's some darkness because it makes his head look like he's raised his head up, the way he's swimming. So, then it actually curves around here. So let's do a little bit of that blue. Maybe a little bit of the hookers underneath there too, because hookers green right out of the well is pretty dark. So we got a little bit of color there, make it look a little more round, and then we've got a little bit of the hookers underneath here to make that look really dark. So we just give him some shape by adding a few more colors here and there. There's also a darker value right under here, so it helps separate his shell. There we go. Let's add a little magnesium blue here too, and then maybe a little bit of the yellow on the front end of that. So there's a really dark area right behind to make his face look round. So there's a really dark area, right? It's almost like a triangle shape. And then there's this really dark area right here. And this is on his beak or mouth or however you want to call it. So let's make a couple of those around his eye, a little bit darker. So if you really look close at his eye, there's a darker area over here, and it's darker underneath here with just a little bit of light. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing or not. So let's soften the edge a little bit. So we may add a few little lines to give you the impression that these little shells have almost like tile, have a few dividers through them. So not doing a lot, just having a few, just to give you the impression that that's that. Now, these are a little more defined up here. And I'm just giving him, there we go. Just helps define a little bit the pattern. And there's a few little designs back here. So I think he's going to be, let's put a little light in his eye. Let's take a little bit of that white and put just a dot in his eye. So that gives him a sparkle. So I hope you enjoyed this little guy. He was a lot of fun.